The people, the headlines, the issues impacting you, all on This Week in Cincinnati on 9 on Your Side.
Welcome back, everyone, to This Week in Cincinnati. My guest is Democrat Joe Schiavoni. He's a state senator and candidate for Ohio governor who will face off others in the Democratic primary coming up very soon. All right, we kind of brushed upon it in the first block, what we call our first segment, about heroin. It is a huge issue in the state of Ohio. Governor John Kasich told us he believes some small progress is being made in the fight against this epidemic. Do you agree with that?
I've given Governor Kasich credit when he's done something good. I think he's done a horrible job with dealing with opioids. I mean, the drug plan is called Start Talking. I mean, we've been talking about this forever and people are dying. And so the bills that I've been proposing in the Senate, they haven't gotten hearings because it makes sense and they don't want to spend this rainy day fund. But we're talking about allocating just 10% of the rainy day fund to deal with this problem. I mean, when I'm traveling from city to city, everybody says that they are the epicenter of the problem. I mean, there's a place called the Hive in Nelsonville that I went to where it's a bunch of kids before and after school go there because their parents are either dead or in jail with addiction. I mean, we have some families where not only the parents but the grandparents are dealing with addiction and the great-grandparents are taking care of these kids. And it's happening more and more, and it's not just in poor rural Ohio, it's throughout the state and suburbs and inner cities. And so we got to invest in this, we got to put our arms around it, and we got to really work together in order to deal with it.
There's sort of ancillary issues which you just touched on, which is it's not just that there are heroin addicts and people who have OD'd and died from this, but then there are the offspring of those children who are left behind, which means that we will then have a foster care program problem. We're starting to see that quite a bit, in fact, here in Hamilton County, Butler County. And so it just seems endless. Are we able to get our arms around this?
I think we can, but we have to invest. And that's why I'm talking about making that investment with children's services, mental health, addiction services, making sure, number one, that the people have the addiction when they deal with the addiction in the actual rehabilitation center, but then afterwards is the key, is reconnecting their families, giving them an opportunity with housing and transportation, job retraining, getting them back on their feet so that they are ready to get back into life. A lot of people did not wake up and just say, look, I want to be a heroin addict. They took drugs just like the doctor said. They were my workers' comp clients in Youngstown that took these drugs, became addicted, or they were an athlete that tore their knee up and got prescribed drugs, and everything went downhill. My running mate, Stephanie Dodd, is from Eastern Ohio. Her sister died of a heroin overdose, and it started with a prescription in high school when she was a high school athlete and hurt herself. And everything just fell apart for the 10 years after that, and she passed away. This stuff is real, and we have to do something about it at the state level and the federal level.
In July, Ohio will start sending felony 5 inmates to county jails because of the overcrowding issues at state prisons. Local sheriffs say, hey, we don't have the room for these guys. Hamilton County, in fact, is looking at reopening an old jail in part because of this. This is a state mandate on local governments with state funding. Should it continue?
I have a problem with pushing everybody into jail. You know, we can decipher who can get help and who should be punished. And I tell people at town halls, some people say, well, I don't want to spend taxpayer dollars on addiction services and Narcan and all this stuff. I get it, but you're going to pay to either incarcerate them or rehabilitate them, and incarcerating them at the end of the day is going to be much more costly. Some folks need that treatment, need that help, need that nudge down the path. We can't save everybody, but we can try. But just locking people up doesn't solve the problem.
So do you want to decriminalize then addiction and drugs?
Anytime you can get somebody into treatment, you should. Drug courts are a good way that you can get somebody that is charged with a felony, especially a first-time offender, and get them through a system where they have to stay clean for a year in order to get their record wiped clean. And when their record is wiped clean, they're reinvigorated. Their life comes back. They see all those things that were important to them before the addiction, and they're back into society. I worked in a drug court in Youngstown. It's powerful, but it is costly. It takes a lot of individual care per person, and it is expensive. But at the end of the day, the other option is throwing them into jail.
Okay, let's go back to that mandate from the state of Ohio, mandating that felony 5 inmates be put down at the county jail level. That is a huge burden on local governments and local jails.
This is what Kasich and the Republicans in Columbus have done.
So would you
when they
reverse
don't
that?
have the money, absolutely. When they
So
don't,
where do you put them?
You either build new jails or you put people into rehabilitation. That's the conversation that I have with people. We can pull inmates that have just been drug offenders and help them reconnect the dots in their life and keep the violent folks that we need to protect from in those facilities. There's no need to put this on the locals. This is what the Republicans do in Columbus. They don't want to invest in something, so they put it on the locals. It's the same with infrastructure. They don't invest in it. They say, well, you can raise your money through an increase in a license plate fee. It's the same thing with addiction. It's the same thing with education. They say, we're not going to pay for it. You got to put a levy out and beg the people for all of this money, and that's why you're seeing people that are really upset in all of these different pockets in our communities.
We're going to continue this conversation more with Ohio State Senator Joe Schiavoni after the break. But first, we do want to mention there are Republicans running. They have a May primary as well for Ohio Governor, Attorney General Mike DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Mary Taylor. We have been reaching out to the candidates. We did have Mike DeWine on recently. We have yet to have Mary Taylor here on our program. But we will be hopefully scheduling her to do that very, very soon. This Week in Cincinnati continues in just a moment.